Hi, everyone. So this is, just to explain, this is a recording that we are doing for the Freedom Festival. And it's recording a session that we have planned with the Health Support and Education Group. The purpose of this section of the meeting is to tell everyone my story, how I came across the Freedom Festival and became a lawful observer, and how I use the principles that I've been taught of common law to make sure that I have the best possibility to stay as free as I can in the circumstances that are happening at the moment around the world and in Britain. So my name is Nitzan, and I have heard about the Freedom Festival probably around September time, and I saw some videos on YouTube, and I looked through the website and I looked through the script. The Freedom Festival at the time, they published some scripts around how to avoid joinder with the police. Joinder was a new word. I didn't know what it meant at the time. My learning since taught me that joinder is to make contact with the police in a situation where the police could arrest you, and to basically consent to be arrested. That's my understanding of the word joinder. So to learn how to avoid joinder with the police was something new to me. And it became interesting because I started to get interested in what is happening with the COVID situation. Things didn't feel quite right. And I understood that there were protests in London, and I live in North London. I understood that there were protests in London, and I went to one or two, and then I heard about police behavior, and I wanted to understand what my rights were. I've already learned that what people referred to as COVID laws were not laws, they were an act, and they were passed through Parliament extremely quickly as a regulation and an act and not a law. I also learned that things like wearing a mask on public transport and in shops were a guideline. Somebody told me that this was a guideline, and he said, listen to Boris Johnson when he speaks about this. Listen to him, he only uses the word guideline. And I listened, and he was right. Boris Johnson never said that it was law. He said it was a guideline. He then said that fines will be attached to this guideline, but he never said that it was law. And from that moment on, I took my mask off. I stopped wearing it in shops. I stopped wearing it in public transport. I became aware of using the get out of jail free card, which is the exemption. Exemption in Britain is self-declared. You don't have to show a lanyard. You don't have to tell anyone. Nobody's allowed to ask you. So I started learning about these things, and then an email came through, and I decided, I knew there was a protest on Saturday, and I decided to attend the workshop on the Friday night, and I think it was in October. And I attended the workshop. It started like at 8 p.m. until midnight. I was asleep by 11:30, but I got most of it. And what we did at the workshop is we mostly understood the script and what was behind the script of what happens when we encounter the police, and it was relevant to the conversation around in protest. You know, what happens when the police comes to talk to us, and I purposefully say come to talk to us because that's what they are supposed to do first. You know, they're supposed to engage. And during the workshop, I learned how to deal with that situation and to use very, very specific words. And in our group, in the Health Support and Education group, we did do a session where we we practice the script. Somebody being the police officer and somebody being the citizen, and what to say and what not to say, and things that are very important. For example, I didn't realize that the word understand actually means, if I say to you, do you understand? And you say yes, that actually means that you stand under me. And when a police officer says to you, do you understand? And you say yes, then you put yourself in a very compromised position. And one of the key things I learned was, when a police officer asks you a question, the only answer is, am I obliged to answer your question? That's the only answer. There is never any other answer. Police are actually not allowed to arrest you or to ask for your identity if they don't have sufficient evidence of you committing a crime. And I learned that at the workshop. And I learned other things. I learned, for example, that it's very important to say things 3 times. So whatever question a police officer asks, the answer is always, am I obliged to answer your question? And by the way, their answer is always, should always be no. They hardly ever say that. They hardly ever say that. But they will only respond with another question. But it's always about saying again and again and again, at least 3 times, but you may have to do it more, is, am I obliged to answer your question? And what happened is that we went through role plays, and the coaches at the Freedom Festival were very good at supporting us with role plays, because it's one thing reading a script, but it's quite another being out there and speaking to police officers. They are intimidating just because they're wearing uniforms. And, you know, for people who are not police officers, we may have a fear of the police that may be totally irrational, but it's still a fear. And having to have a conversation with a police officer when you're in a situation like that, if you don't know what to say, could be quite daunting and quite intimidating. And even if you do know what to say, it could be quite intimidating, definitely in the circumstances that we are experiencing at the moment. So when we were doing the role play, we were practicing situations where police officers weren't nice. They were raising their voices. They were very forceful. They threatened arrest. So it gave us a flavor of what it would be like in real life. But obviously, you can't always imitate real life in a role play. And what happened is the next day I went on a protest, and I am a certain type of person that learns something and wants to practice straight away. And even if I don't get it right, of course, this is what practicing is about, and I will just go and practice so that I can get it better, and I can get it perfect if I can. And I met the people from the Freedom Festival, and I didn't even know what I was doing. Somehow I found myself becoming a law observer. And law observers do something different. The Freedom Festival, definitely the workshop about not creating joinder with the police, is about, you know, being able to protect yourself in a situation where you meet the police. At a protest specifically, because we're talking about that. But a law observer or lawful observer is somebody who actually goes out, approaches police officers, and puts them on notice. And what that means is that when we're using common law, we are effectively stripping away all the legalese. There is lawful and there is legal. Now, I can't pretend to know exactly how to explain all of this, but I have a general understanding, which is good enough for what I need. Basically, Legal is all the legalese, documentation, company law, contracts. All of these things are legal. Lawful is what is in the basis of the law. And common law is very, very simple. And it encompasses really everything. My understanding of it is that in common law, you are free to be and do whatever you want, so long as you don't cause loss, damage, or harm, or injury. And when we go put the police on notice, or police officers on notice, what we do is we use the fact that they are using the fact that they are police officers and they are representing the police force. They are on duty. They have the backing of the police force. They have the rules and procedures. They have the police federation backing them. They are protected by the fact that they are police officers. What we say to them is we say to them, look, we are putting you on notice as an individual, not as a police officer, as an individual. We make sure that we ask for their names and their badge numbers. They have to tell you their name and their badge number. The badge number has to be presented on their shoulders or on their front. Their name has to be presented on the front. I have seen many cases where police officers refuse to say their names, but we will always see their badges. And we put them on notice as an individual. We say to them, we are hereby putting you on notice as an individual. We are saying to you that if any unlawful arrests or unlawful behavior is committed by you, we will hold you personally accountable in the court of law. We will take you to court. You will not have the backing of the police force. You will not have the backing of the police federation. You will have to fork out of your own pocket for your own defense. You may have to pay compensation. You may have to, you may lose your job. You may lose your pension, and you may go to jail. And that's more or less the script. The bottom line of it is what we're doing is we're saying to police officers that they are not protected by their uniform or by their, the fact that they belong to the police force, because we will take them, because if they perform unlawful arrests, and during protests, most of the arrests are unlawful. Some of them are very brutal as well. I have seen it. I have documented it. I can send you all some links to my albums and you will see it. And if they perform unlawful arrests, they can be taken to civil court. Now, the whole situation of actually taking people to court is being now tested by the Freedom Festival, the Lawful Observer, the team, because they have been arrested. A few of them have been arrested unlawfully, and they are starting the process of taking some of these police officers to court. It's hard if the police officers didn't identify by name, because getting the link between the badge number and the name is hard. It's information that is only held at, for the police force. But hard doesn't mean impossible. And people in the team are going through the process of taking people to court. And that is fascinating to watch and understand, because we really want to see, how this operates in real life. It's one thing approaching police officers, and normally the targeting is for the highest ranking police officer on the scene. They would be chief inspectors, they would be inspectors, and they can be identified. They have different color hats and different color badges. And we have a lot of recorded evidence of putting them on notice, because they are responsible for the entire squad that is on the field on that day. So it's one thing putting them on notice, it's quite another actually taking them to court. And so this is now happening, and it's fascinating to watch. And I have been to, ever since doing the Freedom Festival workshop, I probably have been to about 3 protests. And I have seen the peaceful protests, and I have seen the protests where police came through with the territorial support group, which is called the Riot Police. They behaved like a mini army. I can send you links to my albums. You will see videos there of how they get together, they sort of count each other, and then they run across Oxford Street, purposefully to intimidate. It has no other purpose whatsoever, just to intimidate. And they do intimidate. On that day, you will see in the videos, you will see that the different people that came to protest never managed to get into one cohesive group, because the police were everywhere in central London, separating people, arresting people, brutally arresting some people. But the activity of the lawful observers has become noticeable by the police. They already know the people in the team. They already know who to watch out for. They have sort of earmarked some of the people, and they are starting to take notice. A lot of police officers didn't understand for the first few months. They didn't understand what the hell we were talking about. But they're starting to understand now, and they're starting to take it seriously. So I have been recommending in the group and saying to everyone in the health support and education group that it would be really useful to do the Freedom Festival training, because it empowers, it really does. It empowers everyone to at least understand, if not take action, of where our rights are. And there are many, many things that we can do in the situation that we find ourselves in the UK to claw back some of the freedoms that were taken away. And we have to be very determined, and we have to be very focused, and we have to learn not just what to say, but how to be. Our confidence is key to this, is really, really key to this. Because as soon as you feel fear, as soon as you slip with your words, as soon as you say, and they are trained, they are highly trained. As soon as you say something that exposes you and the fact that you don't know what you're saying, then it's much harder. It's much harder to deal with the situation. I'll give you now examples of how I use this, because I've taken this learning and I used it. And one of the things that is in protest is always very, very important is always there's a group. There is power in numbers, and you don't want to be in a situation where as an individual, you're faced with a few police officers. You never want to be in that situation. But I have taken action as an individual, and I will give you some examples. So obviously I told you that I learned how to put police officers on notice. I haven't had enough practice to feel very comfortable with it, but also during, towards Christmas and beyond, it has been very, very difficult to go out and protest. People are not doing that at the moment. Sorry, I need to take a drink. But what I have done is by the way, as you all know, I'm in Morocco at the moment. I came out on holiday on the 19th of December. And about 10 days later, I was told that my flight back to the UK was cancelled. So I had to make a decision and get used to a new situation. So at the moment, I'm living in Morocco. And also for you to get an understanding of what is possible. It's free here. They have a curfew, they have a nightly curfew. For locals, it's not that easy to travel between cities. For tourists, it's fine, although there aren't many tourists here. But apart from, and there is a regulation that says that people need to wear masks when they're out and about, even inside their cars and going out on the street, even when they're on their own. I don't wear a mask. I have a lanyard that I translated. I bought it in the UK. I translated it to Arabic and French that says, you know, that I'm exempt from wearing a mask. I wore it for the first 5 days when I was in Marrakesh, and then it only invoked curiosity, was nothing else. So I decided that I didn't need to wear it. I now wear it if I go to big shops or if I go to any official places like, you know, the telephone company or something like that. So I wear it because the guard at the entrance would say, "Where is your mask?" So then I show them my lanyard. But the police officers have tried to tell me to wear a mask. I just say in English that I'm exempt and I walk away. They don't want to deal with tourists, and they, because I speak to them in English, even though I know some Arabic, they, you know, most of them don't know English. So, so it's easier for them to just let me go. So, you know, I get away with it and it's fine. But they do give on the spot fines to locals. It's 300 dirham, which is about 25 pounds, I think. And it's a lot for people here. And it's on the spot. You have to pay it on the spot. If you don't pay it, you get to visit a police cell for 48 hours. And then you're released without paying. So it's either pay or be arrested for 48 hours. And I have watched it happen. I was sitting in a restaurant, and then it was a street corner, and the police was there, and they were just stopping people, arresting a few, and then moving on. But generally, it's free here. People don't wear the mask on their faces. They wear it, you know, they wear the mask on their chin, on their beard, on their ear, and they put it on when they see police. That's how they deal with it. But generally, it's free here. I can go to restaurants. I can go outside. I can do whatever I like, and it's possible. You know, I don't have to convince you, but it's possible. So going back to the examples of how I used common law and how I used my training. So there's a few examples. First of all, the one when I actually went myself to a police station. So I went on the morning that I was flying out to Morocco. I was flying out in the afternoon. So in the morning, I went to Edmonton Police Station to file a crime report against the UK government. I also support the Save Our Rights movement, and they provided a dossier of evidence to be able to file a crime report against the government. And I printed it, and I wrote my story about the impact the lockdown had on me during first lockdown. And I went to the police. And I went very early in the morning because the evening before when I went, they said to me, it was very busy. I would have had to wait for hours. They said, come early in the morning, it will be a lot quieter. So I did. I went early in the morning. It was 7:15 by the time I got there. And there was only one person in the police station. I have to describe to you how the police station that, you know, when you receive the public, you walk in, it's not an automatic door, it was open. And then you see two fairly big glass booths. Each glass booth has an automatic door. So I didn't know it at the time, but the door is controlled by the person behind the screen. The person behind the screen doesn't have to be a police officer. They also have other people who receive complaints from the public. And there was one lady there, and she was, I approached her, and I was in that glass booth. And I gave her my papers, and I said, I came here to file a crime report against the government, and a conversation started. She didn't want to accept it because I can only file a crime report against a person, not government. And it became fairly heated in the sense that, I didn't raise my voice or anything, but I in myself became quite anxious, but I tried not to show it because the key thing is to stay calm, at least outwardly. And I said to her again and again and again, I want to speak to your supervisor. And she said to me, there's nobody at the station. My supervisor is out. All police officers are out. It's early in the morning. I said, I was told to come early in the morning. Can't you phone, your supervisor? No, I can't. And at some point, I would spare you all the details, but at some point, I said to her, okay, listen to me. I'm putting you on notice. And I started to cite what I told you. I'm putting you on notice, and you will be in your personal capacity, in your individual capacity, etc., etc. And she said to me, you're intimidating me. And I said, she was sitting behind an armored glass. And I said to her, do you feel intimidated? And she said, yes. I said, why? I can't reach you. You're behind the glass. And she said, I'm asking you to leave. And I said, okay, there's only so much that you want to do when you're dealing with the police. And I started to get up and collect my things. And she disappeared from view. She went to the back room of the police station. And I said, okay. And I was trying to leave. And I couldn't. I didn't realize until that point that it was in her control to open and close the door. And I was just there. I didn't know where she went. As far as I was concerned, I was unlawfully detained. And I started to, take videos and record, and I was quite nervous. And it took maybe 4, 5, 6 minutes. I don't know how long, but she came back all of a sudden with the commander of the station. I think he was a chief inspector or inspector. All of a sudden, he was available. And I looked at her and I said to her, am I under arrest? And she said, no. I said, so why did you lock me up here? And the chief inspector was like, she didn't lock you up. I couldn't leave. He didn't even know that they had to press a button to open the door. Anyway, a long conversation started, and he was actually quite helpful. He didn't want to take the crime report from me, but he was quite helpful in giving me information on how I could file a crime report against Boris Johnson as a person, not as a prime minister. But that's beside the point of what I'm trying to share today. And I could never go back to doing it because I'm not in the UK. So that's going to have to wait, and it may never happen. But that's one example. And what happened when I put her on notice, she got scared. I don't know how much she knows, but she got scared. The reason why I was locked in there is because she was scared. It's not because she wanted to lock me up there. So that's one thing. And then another thing was the same day, because I was flying out and I knew that I would be challenged on not wearing a mask. And so I wore my lanyard. And I was going through Heathrow, no problem, nobody challenged me. I was probably the only person in the whole of Terminal 5 that didn't wear a mask, but that was fine. And then I got on the plane, and the flight was full. It was It was totally full. It was a flight to Casablanca. I had a domestic flight from Casablanca to Marrakesh, but the international flight was from London to Casablanca. And I was progressing through slowly, as you do when you board a plane, when the plane is full. And I was getting nearer and nearer the entrance, and I could see already on the aeroplane, a lady having a heated argument with a few of the flight attendants. And I knew what she was arguing about, even before I heard her. And yes, she was in a position of being exempt from wearing a mask, and she was arguing. And I was like, wow, she's going to hamper my tactics here, but we'll see. And I approached the flight crew, and I wasn't wearing a mask, and they said, we need you to wear a mask. And I said, well, I'm exempt. And I showed them my lanyard. And they said, no, you're not exempt. And I said, yes, I am. And under British law, I am exempt and I don't have to wear a mask. And they said, well, you're not under British law at the moment. As soon as you board a flight to Morocco, you are on Moroccan soil. And I said, okay. So a queue was forming behind me. And that lady noticed that there was something going on. So she became quiet, although she was still quite upset. And I said, okay, let's move to the side so that we don't, stop other people from boarding. And I spoke to, I think he was the sort of the head team leader of the flight attendants. And I said to him, look, you have two options now. I was very calm. You have two options. One is you let me fly without the mask. Easy. Second option is you go to your captain, who is the highest authority on the airplane, and you tell him that he is going to take personal responsibility for me having a panic attack on the flight. And he looked at me, but you have to wear a mask. You're not exempt. I said, again, you have two options. You either let me fly without a mask, or you go to your captain and you tell him that he's going to have to accept personal responsibility for a medical emergency on the flight. And the lady that was that stopped arguing, she started commenting. She was very agitated. I said to her, please, this is my conversation. Please stay out of it. I didn't want to introduce emotion. Very, very important not to introduce emotion. And he looked at me and he said, okay. He went to the captain, he came back and he said, can I see your lanyard? And I gave it to him and he went back to the captain and he came back to me and he said, okay, you can fly without a mask. And then obviously they had to let her fly without a mask. And both of us ended sitting next to each other on the flight, which was quite cool. We chatted a lot. So it was fairly easy, but it depended on me knowing what to do in that situation. Putting the captain personally responsible means that he has no protection from the airline company if I sue him. Of course, I can't sue him because he's a Moroccan citizen and all that stuff, but it doesn't matter. Once you say something like this, you make them think. You make them really think about what they're doing and what risk they're taking. And the captain didn't want trouble. As far as he's concerned, I could give COVID to everyone so long as he doesn't delay his flight by 1 second. That's much more important to him. And then the flight went through okay, and we landed in Casablanca. And I went to the airport, to the connection, to the domestic flight from Casablanca to Marrakesh. I already put my translation on my little badge, and I was going to do the same thing. So I get up on the plane, and again, very, very nice, pleasant flight attendant say to me, you have to wear a mask. I said, no, I'm exempt. They look at it and they say, do you have a note from your doctor? And I say, no. I didn't even think about it, to be quite honest. I didn't even think about getting a note from my doctor. I said, no. And they said, in that case, you have to wear a mask. I said, no, I'm exempt. I'm not going to wear a mask. And they say to me, you are in Morocco now. You have to do what we tell you. And I say, no. Do you have a note from your doctor? I said, no, I don't. And if you want me to wear a mask, first of all, you need to ask, again, you have two options, blah, 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 tell your captain. And they look at me and they say, oh, gone. Okay, go in. Okay. I thought I was, I thought I was fine. So I find my seat, I sit down, I open my book. I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. I'm in a foreign country. I am taking a very big risk, but I will not be swayed. But I'm nervous. I'm actually shaking. Not visibly, but inside I know I'm shaking. But I think I'm okay. And then comes on a lady from the ground crew. And she's wearing a mask and she's wearing a visor. And she's starting to speak to me. And I was like, I can't hear you. I don't know what you're saying. So she lifts up her visor. And she says, again, you have to wear a mask. I said, no, I'm exempt. She says, do you have a doctor? And I said, look, you can ask me 30 times if I have a doctor or not. It's not going to change reality. I do not have one. And if you want me to go and speak to the captain, I will. And she says, okay, come out. And we go to the front of the plane near the cockpit, and somebody comes out of the cockpit and he says, and I say to him, are you the captain? I knew he wasn't the captain, but he says, no, I am the manager of the flight from the ground crew. And he starts to say to me, blah, 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 you have to wear a mask. I said, no, captain, personal, all of that. And we spent about 10 minutes doing that back and forth. And I keep saying, I'm going to hold your captain personally responsible. And they tell me, no, if you have a complaint, you go to the company, Air Morocco. I said, no, I'm holding him personally responsible. If you want me to wear a mask, I want his name. And after about 10 minutes of that, when people down the phone are screaming at them to get the flight out, they said, okay, you go. And I won. And it was hard. It was really hard. And it was a long day. It started at the police station in the morning. It ended in that argument at 11 o'clock at night on a flight in a place that is not my home. But I did it because I knew what I was doing. Because I learned the principles and I learned how to embody them, how to be the person that nobody messes with. And these are the main examples. There are other examples, but these are the main examples. And for me, this is what I want for everyone who wants it. Yeah, obviously we know that there are a lot of people who are not awake, but for the awake people, this is what I really want for everyone. I want for everyone to know their rights, to know how to speak to authority. Figures in authority know they have power, but they only have power over people who don't know their own power. And this is what I want. I want that for all of you. I want that for everyone who knows that what is going on right now is not right, and they want to have their own power in dealing with it. This is what I want.